Welcome to CX Today. I am Sandra, I'm a technology journalist, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Surbhi Rathore, CEO and co-founder of Symbl.ai. Welcome, Surbhi. Great to have you here today.
Hey, Sandra. Nice to be here again.
Good. So in this session, we're going to be discussing how companies can use Symbl trackers to detect intents and domain-specific intelligence. Now, first of all, Surbhi, could you tell me what these trackers detect? What are their key features and what are they used for?
Yeah, so just for everyone who is new to Symbl as a platform and why we built trackers, I'll take a couple of seconds to give a quick overview. So today, when businesses are detecting intents or classifying data from their conversations, voice, video, or text, whatever that may be, they're either building custom classification models by putting together the set of data and then training a model for that data and then identifying patterns which are similar to that data. That's one way to solve the problem. The other way to solve the problem is take predefined or pre-built classifiers which exist in some places and identify only specific those things. But there isn't kind of like a sweet spot in between where what if I wanted to detect pricing in a conversation, but I only know the four ways in which people are talking about pricing. Maybe I don't know all the ways. I know that when someone mentions dollars or budget or price point or any of these scenarios, there's definitely a pricing intent, but I don't know the other 100 ways in which humans talk in conversations or sales calls mention pricing. So, as a product manager, how do I enable my product to identify that? Or as a business stakeholders, how do I build a system in a way that can detect intent without knowing the 100,000 ways in which people are speaking about that specific intent? That's the reason why we built trackers. Trackers are built with zero shot learning based on conversation understanding. That means that if you give trackers 4 or 5 ways to detect a specific intent or theme or a phrase, it will semantically find out contextually relevant phrases or sentences that mean the same using machine learning. And it would not do just keyword based matching, which is really important when you're looking for multiple ways in which people can speak about a specific intent. That is the reason that trackers were built. You can use trackers to identify the several ways in which your customers are talking about pricing or track pricing or empathy or politeness or negotiation or any characteristic of language versus any phase in the conversation that you want to track. So that's one of the most popular ways in which companies use trackers, but that is the reason why we built trackers. It is a sweet spot between open source, custom classification to all the way products that are detecting specific themes.
Right. And can you tell me how are these trackers built? You mentioned keyword matching. How do these trackers differ from traditional classification approaches?
Yeah, so I'm most of the people must be familiar with technologies like zero shot learning. Computer vision is a big application where zero shot learning is used today. Symbl has brought zero shot learning into conversation data. Zero shot learning enables you to build a mini sort of a classifier quickly rather than and short circuiting the learning cycle by minimizing the scope of that classification. That's kind of what we did with trackers, and that's how we've built it. So the big value for the business stakeholders or the product people that are using trackers is that when they identify the 5 or 6 ways in which people are talking about a specific intent, they can quickly implement it in real time. And within a second, a tracker will be created. So the time to understand and learn to the time to actually implement or track that specific thing is extremely short circuited. And the time that it takes you to build a tracker is literally a second. And it also works in real time. So it helps you detect those intents or themes in almost less than 200 milliseconds. And that is the goal of identifying trackers. So a very common use case would be that I'm a product manager or I'm a business stakeholder of an outbound call center solution, and I am making in my BPO I make tens and millions of calls every day because I'm trying to identify which call routes into voicemail, which call goes to the answering machine, which call goes to an actual human, and when a human picks up the call, what is the intent of the call. But if I put people behind it, it's hard for me in order to scale and really optimize. So I would use traditional answering machine detection technologies, which will help you identify whether the call was routed to a voicemail based on the tone itself or the frequency of the call that is received. However, they do not take into consideration the content of the call. So if we augmented with trackers the traditional approach of answering machine detection, we completely augmented that with understanding the conversation content, and that actually enabled increasing massive accuracy improvements within the existing methods, so that calls can actually be disconnected when it goes into a voicemail, so that we're not charged for it, because that period of the next 3 seconds is critical. Because if an answering machine calls get started, then you're charged for the call, and you don't want to do that. You want to save the dollars in the business. So that's a very, like, just giving an example of how mission critical, time sensitive use cases implement trackers, to all the way if you want to coach kind of like the characteristics, you want to understand the characteristics of how a sales agent talks, and you might want to put some identifiers on making sure that they cover certain characteristics, which is going to help them close the deal. You can do that in real time, and because you're doing that in real time, you can notify people if that's not happening. Because if you lose the customer on that call, it's gone, like your opportunity is gone. So those are all the areas in which trackers gets implemented. But why it gets implemented in these areas is because of its ability to act in real time, get built in less than a second, and get built with only couple of phrases or couple of sentences and not a huge list of data. And it eliminates the big data building problem.
Right. You mentioned some powerful features of these trackers, but what are the most impactful applications in business?
I think I talked about a little bit on programmability and customization, and how it is important. Apart from trackers being used in compliance, to coaching, to identify and audit specific things in the conversation, to even for acting and taking workflows on specific tools, like if I want to send an invoice to a customer, that is a powerful kind of like a RPA action that can be taken by the agent. So identifying these actions, or auditing the calls on specific things, those are like most of the general use cases with trackers. And use cases are enormous because you can almost track anything, and hence the name. But the biggest reason of building trackers in the way, and the most popular use cases, when customization and programmability are really important for the solution builders. So that if I use a traditional product for building my customer experience, they will help me improve on these five things, or they will help me track these five things for my customer and agent interactions. But I don't want to do that, because as a business, I want to differentiate, and I want to stand out, and I want to make sure that the experience that I give as a business puts me in a unique spot and continues to have an impact on my customer retention. So for that, how can I customize the way and the indicators that I'm communicating to the agent, and add 10 more of those which are relevant, or remove the five that already exist and replace it by the things that I want to do as a business owner? Or even let the learnings from those interactions get applied in real time across the organization. So having very high control on the customizations of what you track, what actions you want to take, and which characteristics of conversations make up an awesome experience for your customers. All of this can be really controlled by you as a solution builder. And that's the most powerful use case for trackers.
Yeah, makes sense. Now, I just want to go back to the, let's say, features of trackers, but could you tell me, how does Symbl learn from the collective knowledge of trackers, and how does it guide their customers?
Yeah. Uh, understanding conversation characteristics as a fundamental layer and understanding what characteristics are most important for what functions. That's the collective learning that we have across the organizations. Obviously, specific trackers are very specific to businesses on the things that they want to track. But what we learn is that fundamentally, if you are thinking, what is your lens of viewing the conversation data based on the function of the business that you most care about, right? So if I'm sitting in the product, my lens of viewing the customer conversation would be very feedback, new feature oriented, request oriented, or maybe NPS oriented, because I want to really make sure that the product that I'm building gets adoption and I get new product ideas. But the lens that someone else from a sales conversation, or a sales leader is looking at the conversation will be very different. It'll be based on how can we sell, how can we close the deal. And so it's very outcome oriented. It's very based on like what is the goal that we want to achieve. And that's what we collectively learn across all the conversations that is being used. Ultimately, we strongly believe that understanding conversation and applying it to the business can create a flywheel of value across the organization. And that will only happen if we all can collectively understand that how to really extract the maximum value from conversation data, which is very personalized to the function that is looking it for. And those are the learnings that we get with trackers, and we make, obviously we continue to improve our fundamental conversation understanding also, so that our customers get more superior accuracy, a higher variance, and also just like certain best practices of understanding whether I put completely polarized sentences or phrases, or do I have to put very similar phrases? Because you could confuse using trackers sometimes with just general purpose intent engines that exist out there, which is not the reason why we built it.
Right. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are interested to know how these trackers can be integrated into solutions they're already using. So, could you tell me how easy is it to use and to integrate this trackers API?
Yeah, I mean, it is as easy as any other API that Symbl provides. There is a separate management interface for trackers that lets a business stakeholder manage, create, organize everything that you want to track for. And then if you're already processing, conversation data with Symbl in form of audio, video, or other forms of communication data, you will just get those trackers that you applied through the management interface automatically detected when you get asked for that information after the conversation is processed, or in real time, both. So they work in both async and real time. But integration is, if you're already ingesting conversation data with Symbl using a specific interface, you don't need to do anything extra except for managing the trackers and then getting the information of trackers towards them. That's pretty much it. So it's easy to use.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me today, Surbhi.
Thank you, Sandra.
My pleasure. And that's it for today. If you enjoyed our conversation, feel free to share, like, and subscribe. Thank you everyone for watching. See you in the next video.